Well, thank you for inviting me. I've heard some of the folks that you've had here demonstrating for you, so I feel I've been included in very select company. Some of us saw Milford Zorns give his demonstration on his 100th birthday on Saturday. He's failed a lot. He looked very, very fragile, but boy, when it came time for him to get up and give that demonstration, his hand was sure, there was no shaking, and as usual, he gave an extremely precise and informative demonstration. You know, he's been a frugal man all his life because he didn't have any money. And so he's using full sheets of watercolor paper and a big old chunk of charcoal, and he's drawing on it, and he wants to turn it over to use the back so that he doesn't waste anything. Bill Anderson just said, I think we can give you a fresh sheet of paper. So he's been a wonder, and we all need to take heart. My husband is convinced that watercolor or painting, really it's painting, is the fountain of youth because of all of these remarkable people who are living very long lives. And when you listen to Milford talk, and he talked about thinking about the composition, looking for the horizon line, what he's going to include, what he's going to exclude, just all these other color considerations, value considerations. And they say Sudoku and crossword puzzles are good for our minds. I mean, when you do a painting, you have a million decisions to make, and I really do think not only does that keep your mind agile, but also when we get up in the morning and there's something wonderful to do, isn't that exciting? And when you drive down the street, we're all just a little bit dangerous. It's a good thing the DMV doesn't know this, but it's just, there's no boredom. When my beginning students come and they have just a short session of classes, the most heartwarming thing they say to me is, I look at the world differently. And I love to teach beginners. I taught junior high kids, and this is kind of like teaching kids without all that other stuff you had to deal with when they were in junior high. But there are so many people who did not give themselves permission to paint until they were retired or until they're adults. And it just breaks my heart that art education is something that's really being eliminated from the schools rather than being added to the schools. When I first was teaching in Anaheim, my 7th graders all had a semester of art, so at least I had them for that long. And it was wonderful. I mean, and what the kids did just used to knock my socks off. The book that was mentioned, that Work Small, Learn Big, and there's somebody here who brought one for me to sign, is out of print. But if you go to usebooks.com, you can perhaps find one of these. And the problem is that I understand the publishers don't earn that much money. The distributors earn the money. So that's why there isn't a big interest in republishing. They are going to republish Jerry Brommer's wonderful book on content. If you don't have that, it's going to be coming out real soon. See if I can find myself. I'm in alphabetical order. But anyway, all of us have about 8 pages, and it's each person has a different approach to ink and watercolor. And it was wonderful to be included, and it was really good for me to put in language what I do. It's interesting. You break it down, and I interviewed a lot of my beginning students to find out why it worked. And while I've got this here, I'll mention why, and particularly for my beginners, but I think for all of us, why it's really helpful. Ink and watercolor when you're on location. It's not complicated. You have minimal materials. It gets you going. Keeps you focused because you have to work quickly. Now remember, I have my beginning students outside. They can't dither. I mean, we've got this much time. It makes you practice drawing by starting with a pen. You don't have an eraser, so you can't erase and draw, back and forth. It helps you get over perfectionism because what I do is use a water-soluble pen. So when the brush goes across it, it obliterates part of the line and creates passage. And one of the things that I brought for the raffle is this little bag, which is it's for people who carry wrenches and such. But it makes an absolutely wonderful art bag. You have to split off some of all this stitching because our things are bigger than wrenches. But I have included a pen, which is the one, this is the new version of the one that I've used a lot, and I had a student who finally found a replacement. And then I've just included just a little sketchbook for you.
Would you hold the book up for me?
Oh,
just
yes.
The title, thank you.
Does that help?
Yeah.
It encourages you to work outdoors, because if you sit down and get yourself out of the way and out of people's direct eye line, they won't bother you. It keeps you on task because you have to complete your job in a certain amount of time. And it builds confidence quickly because you don't have to do as much. The line says so much that you don't have to put as much watercolor on there. And it reduces your stress level because it's the kind of fun that takes complete concentration. I had some tribulation when I had a gal who does she tracks drug trials for a great big pharmaceutical. They work her to death. She's hardly home. And she came in and she said, I'm going to take painting for stress relief. Oh. I did a one-day workshop for watercolor last a week or so ago. And they said, well, can I paint? Know how to paint after one day? And I said, you're going to be on your way, and then you're going to take the rest of your life, because that's what we do. And then to me, it's the whole thing about keeping you young by engaging your mind and your body and everything that you do. And we are extraordinarily lucky to do what we do. And we really have a job of going around and infecting other people to do this, because I'm reminded that a young gal who's teaching painting, and thank you for bringing it, young gal who's teaching painting complained to me one time when I was trying to set up to demonstrate at the Orange County Fair that none of her students had won awards, and she wondered if she should continue teaching. And so I stopped and I said, if you're teaching to win awards, you should stop teaching. Wrong goal. What you want is for your people to enjoy the process. And when you enjoy the process, you continue and you get better, because you cannot get better. The more you do, the better you get. But if you're rigid about being scared about making a mistake, you know what those are like. Those are what I call paintings with girdles. They don't work as well. So, ink and watercolor. This is what started this whole direction that I'm going on. I had so many paintings that didn't have a pure bit of watercolor. I had nothing to turn into watercolor west this year. I had mucked up everything. This is one that I did on a trip which started so many of these on 9x12 handmade watercolor paper, and it's just an ink line with a little pen like I showed you, and then watercolor. And this one was done on location on the island of Elba in a wonderful little village high on the mountain called Pojo. And it was just one of probably 15 I did. I did 75 by the time I was working with that book. And then I decided that pen, and this is what you do when you've got a sketchbook. These are, see if I can find one with just one of those pens. Well, here's one, but it's only partially done. You can almost see some of the pen and some of the ink. But this is perfect for doing something like a sketchbook. And there's another one in here that you'll see. This is how you do a sketchbook page. I was with Brenda Swenson and we were in the float barns. This year, we have a goal of painting in oddball places. And so she's painted in the float barns for a long time. She has contacts in Phoenix Floats. And this, I did a sketchbook page because we were in the barn with the biggest floats you could imagine, and we couldn't get back far enough. Then this, we got in a smaller float bound, and this was Ronald McDonald House. If you can you see that? And so ink and watercolor is wonderful for a sketchbook because you can get an idea quickly. But then I wanted to do it bigger, and that little pen doesn't work when you want to do something bigger. So I started working with an ink brush. Now, can you see that through the shiny? Is that all right? Is that coming through? This is one I just did this summer when I was obviously in Florence, and I hiked and hiked and hiked up to that something aluminiato. And so this I haven't touched since I sat up there. And it isn't complete. But the thing that works is that I almost feel like I'm half cheating because you don't have to paint as much. There's that line that helps you. And you don't, how many of you have done a watercolor and you do a drawing with a pencil and then halfway through you've lost your pencil? The lines, you know, so this doesn't happen that way. And then this is another one from a trip to Italy earlier. And this one's again on the island of Elba. It's Capolivra. And it's ink and watercolor. And this is a pen and ink brush. And I'll show you because I'm going to be using that one tonight. It's one that's used for, I did something, sumi. And so it's a wonderful brush. And I can do something larger. Okay, well then that's ink and watercolor. But then I was teaching a workshop at Redlands, a 4-day workshop on ink and watercolor. And I wanted a progression. So I decided that we were going to have underpaintings. So this is what we did. We had underpaintings first. Now here's one with just like a pit pen. And this one is just a drawing on top of a background so that you obliterate some of the white. Bob Wood used to say, by getting rid of most of the whites, you make the remaining whites more special. And so it's a way of really zooming into your focal point, and you don't have to worry about it so much. Here's a painting done with the first underpainting, and then the ink brush, and then watercolor again, so that it makes an interesting kind of a complex surface. So that was the next thing that I did, and this is what I'll be demonstrating tonight. We'll put some of these up over on our minimal little easels over there. There they are. Okay, what I just showed you was an underpainting and then ink on it. This is what an ink brush can do. This has nothing but the ink brush and some water on a brush on top of it, so that you just are really making a value study. It's just a black and white drawing on top of that. And then I decided, wouldn't it be interesting if that background is stained collage instead? And so I'm leaving this unfinished so you can see where the process is going. But do you see how one leads to another? And these are even similar in color, and they don't have to be. But the stained collage is just, this is a plain piece of rice paper, but most of these have been rice paper colored with watercolor, let dry, and then adhered with matte medium. And then that gets dry, and then I look at it, and I don't figure out my subject matter first. I do all the background, and then I figure out where it is by twisting it around. That works best for me. When I teach it, we do paper first, drawing second, and we do drawing first with a permanent pen, and then paper second. Yeah, each person has an easier way to do it. I am too bound by the drawing. That's my hang-up. So I always do the ink first, or the watercolor, the collage first. There they are. This is, I shouldn't do that so close to the speaker. Here's a piece of stained collage paper, here's a piece, and here's a piece. And I was on Pomona's campus, and I looked through this thicket. There was that building, and this was in my sketchbook. Sometimes I just throw these things in my sketchbook, and so I quickly went to it, and then drew this, and then added after the line and the watercolor was done. So here's one done that way. Several years I've gone up to Lone Pine to paint with Henry Fukuhara, and Henry didn't go the last several years, but the group still goes, and there's nearly 100 painters. Have any of you gone up to that? Isn't that neat? It's just a wonderful weekend, and it's a gathering of artists, and This is one of the paper cranes that are on the memorial. And here's a piece of water, here's a piece of the tissue paper that comes up here. There's another one here, there's another one here, and there's one here. These I call integrated collage, where you have some collage paper and then ink paper and then watercolor. And sometimes I collage back again. You know, if it doesn't work, I fix it. Here's another one, Vibery. It's the wool weavers' village. Some people have called this the most photographed village in England. It is this wonderful little cluster of Cotswold cottages that kind of ramble down a hill, and I'll bet it was so cold in the winter and so hot in the summer when those people were having to weave. But I really thought I had fixed myself a problem. Now, I do like to do that. I like to get myself into corners and see if I can get them out. It's really something I learned from Bob Wood, that you want to keep putting yourself right on the edge of uncomfortable, because that's when you learn. You have to figure it out. So here's the color. Here's that dark sienna. It's the color that I did my paper. You're better off doing it a middle value. So where's the papers? Here's one that scoops up here. There's one that's down in here. And I think there's another one that chunks up in here. And I looked at it for a while, and I really couldn't figure out what I was going to do with it until I looked at the color of the brown, and I decided that was the roof color. It really wasn't, but I decided that was the roof color of the cottages. And so all of this is white paper. All of these white buildings are made white with gouache. Now, the thing that's interesting, this is one I remember I demonstrated for our students when I taught this integrated collage. How many times do we talk about what's the color of that tree? What about that flower? They started saying things like, I need a passage of white. I need a linear connection of darks. And I just about danced around the room because they started talking about paintings. Did we lose me? Did this thing go off?
You're okay.
Okay. So to me, this is something that really taught design, and it taught painting. Okay. I did something.
I think the picture is away.
Is the picture? No?
No, I'm just changing the battery.
Okay. Frustrating not to be able to talk. I do that. Have been doing so for a long time. Do you want this little guy?
Yeah.
Smile.
Okay, is that better? Can you hear? Okay. Good. I also hit it with the picture.
Oh, that won't affect it.
Okay. One of the things that I also think that's valuable about working the way I'm describing is that you can use familiar subject matter in a new, fresh way. If we have to paint the same painting today, tomorrow, next week, we're going to bore ourselves to death, and we're going to bore anybody who looks at our paintings. So to me, I prefer working on location. That's my pleasure. And sometimes studio painting can become almost a chore when I'd rather really be outside. So what I've done is find ways to work to keep myself interested. And this is one of the ways that I do it. I use subject matter that I've originally drawn on location, and then I add drawings from photographs that I bring back, and then I go off on another tangent. But what it's done is enable me to keep working, keep myself interested in the whole process. Now, that very first little painting that I showed you, the one of Peugeot. Okay. Here's Peugeot done in a more traditional way. I'll just put it in front. This is just wet into wet background and watercolor. And here's the third way, which is just a little card almost, and that's with an underpainting and then a thin line and then a very little watercolor, doing something like this. When you're planning some of these underpainting or collages and paintings, I just do this with marking pen. And this was a little Victorian in San Francisco on the same street as the one I showed you with the yellow. And then I just toss these away into a drawer. And then when I'm hunting subject matter, I go get them and I decide if that's what I want to do. I kind of do a lot of planning at one time. This is just an underpainting and then just a permanent line drawing that I use as a prompt now for paintings. These are the little wool weavers cottages. And then something that I'm teaching right now, and you're seeing it in its very, very rough form. Here's the same subject matter that's stained collage. And what this is, it's taking that other to another extreme, and Jerry Brommer's the one that started this whole technique, and it's stained rice paper that you glue over the entire surface of the page. Then you go back in and paint with watercolor and gouache really helps you make an opaque to go over the top. And that's fun. I haven't added ink to this one yet. I might do that later. But that's the way I've been working. And so what I want to do today is show you how I proceed when I'm doing paints. If I can find where I put everything. I was so careful. Now, I was optimistic thinking I might show you about doing an underpainting, but you guys know how to do that, so I don't think we need to go over that. And in an interest of time, we don't want to do that. I always figure bringing more material is better than others. Now, one day, and this is the kind of stuff I do if I'm tired and I ought to be working on paintings that I want to go somewhere. I find things to do like mixing new colors, or I just do a whole bunch of underpaintings. And these I did more than a year ago, I think. And obviously I was thinking pink because I was in the same place. And this one's going to be a challenge because look at how active it is. This one's more of a challenge than this one. This one I can this is the kind of thing that I do. I take a look at that and if you've ever taken a class from me, you know that I lose things. All right, but look at Peugeot. Can you see how I can put that up and down? Or I could do the one of Dulafi, which was the large painting of the tiled roof, and that's in Provence. And I might be able to do the Byberry rooftops on this and make something of it. It would be pretty crazy. So, you get to pick my poison. All right, show of hands. How many want to see me work on this paper? I know what you're going to do. How many want to see me? Yeah. Thanks, Heath, guys. Of course, I gave you the option, didn't I? Pretty dumb. Anybody who used to teach junior high ought to know. You don't give them an option you don't want them to take. It's rather like with little kids. Would you rather take your teddy or your giraffe to bed with you for your nap? So they don't just say no. Okay. All right. I kind of had a feeling you might do that to me. Okay, here's one of the pens that I use. I'm not sure they have it. They have gone through so many revolutions of these. This one is is this a Kame pen? One was a Kuretake, but they're all on the page I've gotten them at Daniel Smith's catalog, and they have a cartridge of ink in them that you can change. and you can buy new tips. The first one, I waited a while to buy it. I think it was like $60-something, and the reason I waited to find this, that I looked so hard, was because I wanted water soluble. See, most people want permanent, and so all of them scream, "We're a permanent pen," and I didn't want permanent. So finally I found it, and then I had to wait because I didn't know if I was going to spend that much money. And then I used it. Oh my. So these are 1, 2, and I have another one. Okay, so here we go. Now I need my little drawing, and that's why it's so valuable to have these sketches. All right. This is going to be a big tree. See, I have a cruciform here, so this is going to be a big tree. These houses are going to nestle in here. And then there'll be some other trees. And what I'm going to have to do is make this front interesting. And what I haven't done with this, which is the good idea, is to leave a light space so that it can be your subject. So let's just wing it. Okay. Here is going to be this house that turns away from us, and I'm just going to the thing that's really neat about this pen is you push on it and it gets thick, and I don't know, I know this is brand new. I showed both Milford and Henry my pen, and they loved it, because they of course like to use that dark line. Well, I'm having trouble with this guy, because I want it to be a dark line here. It's got to be dark in order to countermand this very active, crazy background. But you know what? Byberry's never been painted like this before. And that's what's kind of fun about doing this, I think, is what just kind of challenges you to think differently. And I can still remember doing that integrated collage with this subject matter, and when those white buildings went in with the gouache, it was like, yes, this is going to work. And it's just exciting to me. And I kind of do with my students like I'm doing with you. It's kind of like throwing myself under the bus in front of people. Okay, so now we've got this first one coming in, and this line, if this wasn't such a strong line, then I was going to be having troubles here to make this strong enough. I rarely push this hard on this, but on this guy it's going to need it. And I need to even encourage it a little bit with water. Okay, and these are such wonky rooftops. England, we were there in 2003, and it was just at the end of Britain in bloom, and I could not believe the flowers and all of the wonderful displays that they fix up. But it really reminded me, since I have a gallery in Old Town, and there are different things that the merchants get together to do. And it just really reminded me of home, because our bus driver said that some of the merchants want the cities to pay them if they're going to have any displays, and why should they incur the cost? And it's still that natter that goes on in any big group of people. But they are wonderful. And then there's stuff along the roadside for manure for sale. And then in a newspaper article, what a delight. They had a description of the fall colors, and they talked about the new gamboge leaves. Gamboge in a newspaper article. Wow. You say gamboge here, and people say, huh? In fact, that happened. I did a series of paintings for the Orange Library, for our new library, which is just wonderful. And Nora Jacobs, who's our librarian, she got everybody in the whole community involved. When they were in the studying stage on one Saturday, they had people come in and sign the girders. years. And so their names are on it. And there were little kids that did that with their families. And one of the things they wanted was a history walk, and they were going to do photographs. But the problem was the picture that everybody's pretty sure are Chapman and Glassell was the only picture that was the long, kind of narrow, horizontal that was the right shape for the plaques. And it was, let's see here, I've got to see if I can get this just a minute. Every once in a while I have to pay attention here. And the other pictures were either really hard to see, or they were non-existent. I mean, we were doing the early cultures, we were doing, how are you going to do the early Indian culture? I mean, they had, pictures of replicas of the huts and that sort of thing, but they didn't have any photographs or anything that could be done, and everything would have been a composite. And so I think it was Joanne Kuntz, one of our former mayors, said, well, why don't you have paintings? And so I got to do the paintings, and it was great fun. And I kept getting pictures sent to me by the librarians to use as subject matter, and a whole lot of it was on a wing and a prayer, and this is what we think. And I was drawing, I decided that I wanted one of the old packing trucks, because there were at one time like over 30 packing houses in Orange in the heyday of the orange business. And I looked about doing a building, but the buildings were real boring. And also then that would honor just one packing house, and so I decided that I wanted to do a truck. So I got this picture of a truck, and it's all black and white. I don't know what color those trucks were. And I have a friend down the street who is the world's expert on Duesenbergs. And if he doesn't have a part, he manufactures it. He has connections with the family. He has all of the plans. I can't tell you the cars I've ridden in because he has to test drive them. So before my daughter joined me, I would put a sign on the window of my door and just say, be back in 5 minutes. Because I wasn't going to miss going on those wonderful cars. Anyway, so I called him and I said, I need some help. What color were the old packing trucks? And he says, Brewster Green. Brewster Green. Brewster Green. Thank you so much, Randy. And I said, and he said, everybody knows what Brewster Green is. So I said, cerulean blue, alizarin crimson. And he said, okay, it's dark green, dark blue green. I thought two could play that name. All right, now see, this is going to become a tree so that maybe it looks like it's supposed to. Here's some of the doorways. What am I doing time-wise? I need to hurry along so you don't come along and we get moved out with a vacuum. Some of this stuff I'm just making up. Now there's a lot more foliage in here that I'm going to do because, see, this is too much stuff up in here that's white. I'm going to need to add some color, or this becomes the most important thing. And this is some buildings that are a lot closer, but it's going to look kind of funny on this, so I think I'm just going to add another little house here that fits in with the group. And I love these little notched, the little chimneys. And what was really interesting too to me, we went to one little village of Stanton, which really interested me since my daughter-in-law's maiden name is Stanton. And we drove in the bus, and you're looking, and all the thatched roofs in that village were a different color, with a different pattern. And so I guess these guys who were the thatchers had their own signature weave. And And they were absolutely beautiful, and I guess they can find people who still do that today. I mean, that's rather like having a house in Old Town. You need to be either really handy or quite wealthy to be able to do all those things that you need to do when you have old things that need particular help. Okay, kind of looks like, I guess, Guy Fawkes Day. I started to say 4th of July, but that wouldn't be there, would it? That's where the damn Yankees. Okay, so now I'm going to have a, see, this now becomes a flower garden down here that's coming tumbling down here in front, which is absolutely appropriate for the Cotswolds. And I think I can start using watercolor. Okay, I'm going to hold it up.
Turn it upside down for a minute so we can get a sense of where it is.
Okay, so there's where the drawing goes, and you can see why the strong line is really important. And so now I'm going to start adding color to it. And I'm going to have to hit pretty strong colors, and the color, of course, is going to have to be reflected by what's already on there. This, by the way, is, I think, one of the things that helped me the most in making sure that I got strong color is I was using Kleenex, but I just was using boxes. But just putting just an old sponge in a soap dish, and you can then empty your brush on it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and use bigger brushes to begin with here, because I want to get finished sometime tonight. Okay. I think I'm going to do a kind of a lavendery blue sky. We'll see how this works here. And I'm going to want some quiet places because, you know, I left precious little quiet when I was splattering around. It was a real hot day and I was inside and having a good time in the studio. I did find one thing, that little drawing of Pojo that I showed you, the little high little village in on Elba Island. Let's see if I can remember here. Periodically I rearrange my palette, and some of that I do on purpose because I get myself into habits of using the same colors, and I don't want to do that. Okay, I'm just going to throw some kind of yellow into these puddles of color so that I kind of quiet that down, and I will, see here. Anyway, the last time I was in Pojo, the first time I was in Pojo, it was like God made it the most perfect day ever. There was a breeze, clouds, you could see over the wall that was real steep, down across the olive groves to great vineyards to the marina. There were, where I was sitting, there was just a little trash thing where you could just put anything you didn't need. And the last time I was there, it was like an Andy Cap cartoon in that Joe Lipstick, you know, who ran around with a clouds over his head. That was it. And I found out that I don't like Pojo when it's really gloomy. I think I'm a bit of a wimp. When it gets really, really cold, I'm not sure how I feel. Okay, now I think what I'm going to do here, this is called No Plan. Let me put in some sky or some tree and see what happens. And that's part of the reason I like to do these, but I do get myself into stuff. But I figure, you know, I'm not going to learn anything if I don't just go for it. And that's one thing that I think that I like not having to paint a lot for, I really don't worry about, at this point, producing paintings because I get enough of them so that I have them. But it's been good for me to have the studio because, you know, you have to paint a lot in order to do those. So I've really upped my number of paintings that I do. And what caused that was Jerry Brommer. He did the very first year that I had this studio. He, I think Purple Roof. I asked him if he would come and do a one-day workshop, not knowing that he didn't give one-day workshops. But he was nice and he said he would. And then I said, Jerry, I don't, in fact, I had no idea what he charged. I didn't know anything. I just asked. And I said, if I feed you dinner, will you stay and talk, you know, show people some slides of your work? Okay, I'll do that. And during the talk that he gave, he started showing his slides, and I don't know why it came up, but the conversation was about how many paintings he did. I don't know, sorry folks. And it turned out that he was showing us 75 slides, which was half of his output for the year, and it did not include demonstration paintings. And I thought, I think I better kick it into gear. Because I think the year before that I'd done like 35 paintings. And so what I did, and it really worked, is I gave myself a goal of how many paintings to do a year, and then I broke it down into months, and then I broke it down into weeks, because I'm one of those people who will kind of wait if I don't have it to do right now. And so I made it a goal to have I think that next year it was supposed to be 65 paintings, and the next year it was over 70, and the next year it was 100. And I didn't make myself have all big paintings. It could be small paintings, sketchbook. I didn't want to discourage myself. I wanted to be able to make my goal. But you know, once you start getting used to doing that, then you just do it. You know, it's kind of like anything else. You get muscled up to it, and so then you do it. Okay, I like this building with a white roof because it's a contrast there. So I'm going to do this in the kind of typical Cotswold color. But I probably ought to line it up a little bit, just because, not because it's Britain, but because of the colors that I've already used in this. I can't just... And you see, this also makes you not use local color all the time. It makes you kind of have fun with this. Okay, that's still wet, so I'm not going to do anything with that. Let's see what I can do with the flowers. I'm going to bring a whole bunch of color down here. And I can still do this because I already started. In fact, these trees need some of that. I'm going to move you. I think they need a lot of that. That's a little. I'm being Tom Fong. Tom's going to do a workshop for me this year. He is so cute. I saw him on that when I was up there the other day at Milford's deal. And I said, "Hi, Tom, how are you?" And he said, "I'm fine. Are you excited about my show at your gallery?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "So am I." He's having a show in March, and he's not going to do a workshop till later in the year. But he is so much fun, and he is so enthusiastic. And don't his paintings reflect him?
Yes.
And his personality? And I think there's something really important for us to know about that. And that's that we paint who we are. I can't paint. I paint all the time with Brenda Swenson. Do you want to know that she's had her bag like mine for about 5 years? Do you see mine has junk on it, mess, compared to that new one? Do you know that hers still looks new? It is tidy. I was up there and we were working in her studio one day and we were working with a paper cutter. We worked on something, she used the paper cutter, she put it back. And then later on we had to get it out, like 5 minutes later, use the paper cutter and she puts it back. When we work in my studio, we got the paper cutter here, we got a pile of paper here, we are totally different and we are very close and we work together beautifully, but we are so different. And I think we can't try and paint like somebody else and be successful. You have to be the best you can be. And we can all learn from each other. But you have to then go off and paint by yourself and find out. And I remember one time asking Jerry, I said, you know, I look at my paintings and I think I'm all over the block and I don't know, you know, which one it is. And he said, and I said, I guess I don't have a style. He said, don't worry about style. After you've done 1,000 paintings, you'll have a style. Okay. He's right. He was very right. You just paint, and then you get there, and then you don't have to worry about it. You know, we worry about the wrong kind of things, I think. And this is supposed to be fun. Okay, this isn't strong enough, so I'm going to hit it again, but I'll just hit part of it. And this has got to stop this, because this is a horizontal sort of coming up. Do you have a break that I need to be aware of?
Yes, at 60 minutes, we have to change the tape.
10 more minutes.
10 more minutes.
We got 10 more minutes,
Do I have to be finished?
No. No.
Good.
but you have to take
Ain't
it.
gonna happen.
You have to take it off.
Okay, so one thing I think I may have to do is strengthen this tree, because you know we talked about this kind of being a cruciform, and this is not dark enough so that I've made this a strong enough statement so that I can't touch that. So I think right now what I'm going to do is strengthen this sky color back here. Now, if I had been a very smart girl, I would have decided which one of these I was doing and then done a value sketch, before I come see you. That would have been what I would have done. I didn't do that.
Do you usually?
When I'm really working on a painting that I want to know where I'm going, yeah. But I'll tell you, a lot of times I do this because I just have fun trying to figure out where I'm going to go. And talk my way through the design problem. Because this already kind of set up a little bit a way of a design. Okay, I'll show you what happened there. Since you're looking at it upside down side, aren't you? Okay, so see that?
Oh.
Now see, I ought to turn around and look. Okay, all right, that was better. All right, now I'm going to do the same thing here over on the other side, but I'm going to shift color, and this is going to go more purple because I don't want it to all be the same. This can't be just a real pretty pastel painting. It's got to have some oomph because the way it started. And then I can just pull this out and smush it out here. And now I'm going to make the top of that tree strong because, let's see, I'm going to use, what am I going to use here? I'm going to use a deep blue. I guess. But but I think I'm going to pull in some of that red because that's in there. So this is going to be a reddish tree. Yeah, that's better. Up there, but these edges of this tree are too strong. They've got to get softened, but all I have to do now is just smush that. Okay, and this should come out here. And then let's put some, and this brown I'm using is a permanent brown, and it's really more of a red, but it's a gorgeous color. It has a lot of life, so I think, and I want some of that to be obliterated. I don't want it to be quite so strong. And then there's some right here, so let's get some of that pink coming over here to define that corner of that rooftop. Okay. Okay, let's see, oops. It's hard to see because, all right. And this has got to get stronger now. My first little studio that I rented for 4 years was over Watson's drugstore. And I had just a little over 300 square feet. And in order to see my paintings, I had to open the door to my studio, go out onto the landing, and put my painting on the far side so I could get away from it far enough so I could actually see it. Because if you can't see it, you know, across the room, what good does it do? Okay, let's make purple windows. That'd be lovely. And they have all these little paned windows. Okay, and we'll put, and always there's a dark edge underneath the E, so that'll strengthen that. And I keep wanting to strengthen that part. But this still is kind of boring. Let's see if I can put some. Okay, and right here, you just tell me when your little tape runs out.
We have about 4 more minutes.
Okay. I'm going to just tuck this up against here and because I'm not going to do too much down in here. Here is, that one's going to be a bright yellow tree. All right. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with this guy. I might just, where's my drawing? My drawing doesn't really have too much in the way of the trunks of the trees because it was really dense foliage. Let's make this bigger. Okay, and now I'm going to come back down into that, and what color do I want? Maybe this with yellow. Yeah. Opera is a neat color to use with New Bambosia. It just makes the loveliest orange. I was up at Bob Wood's workshop one year. My kids were really little. And it was when opera, I think, was first out, or that's when I first became aware of it. And Bob was using opera, and he had, of course, that store down in the basement of his house for his nephews. I'm not sure a niece would sell stuff for it. Everybody bought opera. We all knew that it was going to take us to the next level in painting. You know, I was thinking when you were talking about getting a cut from, or some money from a savings and loan, what we should get some money from his art supply stores. Okay, let's see what happens now. Oops. All right. I'm gonna need I think this little rooftop right here, this one is gonna need to get dark, because it goes away. And it's too much color to be left light, unless I really hit it. So I'm gonna make that, I think it ought to be blue. Maybe not, maybe orange. Because I don't want to make it the colors that right next to it. And I can always change it. Orange is light enough, I can change it. Complement there. Red, violet would be blue, green. That's probably a better option. So I will shift. You always get to change your mind. See if I can get enough color out of this.
Okay, we're just about to change takes.
Okay. I'm just going to see if I can get enough color in here. That should be a lot more turquoise than it's coming up. I think I had a lot of green on my brush.
You can talk to them for a few minutes, we'll change the tape.
Okay.
Okay? That's
Okay. I guess I'm not supposed to paint while I do this.
better. Well, they can't see it first,
Can't
but
see it.
I take it
Okay,
out.
I tell you what, I'm going to put it up over here. And see how much I can lift and make that a blue violet. I just went too far away from what I was doing here, so. So I'll leave that alone. Oh, wow, that is really, really. By the way, here are cards for Brenda Swenson's show. We're having the receptions the 16th of February. Show hangs from February 4th to March 2nd. My gallery is just a block north of the plaza in Orange, so if you want to come up and spend a day, there's an awful lot to see there, and I'll tell you where there are more restaurants going in. Everyone's saying, do we need more restaurants? But there are there. And then if any of you are interested, this is a kind of an out-of-date newsletter, but there's information about things and about classes if any of you are interested. So I will put that there. And I haven't put it out, but people are beginning to sign up because I still haven't even established a price. But some of you guys that have come for Jerry, he's coming again in October. I didn't have him in 2007 because I didn't get on his list. And he's cut down. He only does 15 this year. Gosh, that man, he turned 81 early this month. And
What is he going to do?
he's going to do one on design content. Yeah. Last time he did one on design and everybody was saying, come back next week. Oh, yeah, well, his schedule is remarkable. Like I said, Fountain of Youth. I mean, these guys are amazing. And his travel schedule, because I teach a bunch, but boy, I don't have a travel schedule like he does. And then he comes home and he finishes a whole bunch of paintings, you know, that goes on to the next show. I mean, he can just, and on workshops, I can keep up with Jerry's starting number of paintings. We kind of had a contest when we were in Provence one time, but I don't go home and at night and paint. I go and put my feet up and read a book. I don't keep it up the way he does. He is absolutely remarkable. He can paint me right into the ground. Okay, so this has to get darker. That means this is going to get darker right here. And I think I'm going to see if I can do a yellow here. Nope, doesn't work. See, a value scale would work, but not a color plan, because this thing is so crazy. So, I think maybe a cobalt blue little house, and I'll turn this around for you in just a minute so you can see what I'm doing, since you're definitely part of this. Now I need that purple, it needs that warmth in order to read right. And a lot of times I use my brush upside down so that I can make a soft edge down there. I think that needs to come down a little bit more. And I'm going to let it blend into a bright little puddle of flowers, it says here. Let's see. Okay. I don't much like the color of that door there. But let me show you what's happening here. And so this one now has got to get dark again. Let's see, I just put that purple there. I think I am really painting myself into a corner. So all I can do is see if it works. So I'm going to go grab some ultramarine blue this time, and then I'll purple it down. That's better. That feels better. Don't you think it's more interesting to watch me struggle than to see me do it perfectly? Say yes. Oh, good. Okay, let's see here. And then we're going to have a couple of little windows. And this little roof I'm going to give it a little bit of pink as it turns the corner there. So that will define it, but it won't. Okay, that's better. That makes me happier. And this is kind of an extended, almost like a shed roof. The painting I'm working on for the stained collage, I didn't make that. It's kind of confusing, so I left it out, but I'll be honest this time to what was actually there. Okay. And this, I think actually the roof goes across like so. Okay. And some of these I should be doing light windows against a dark building so that I can shift it. Okay, these are kind of going to be lighter roofs. There are fences, or picket fences actually. Let's see what I can do here. One of the things when I was teaching junior high, they had the neatest movie, or whatever they called those things, the kids, that was Elliot O'Hara doing a watercolor. And I used to demonstrate for my kids, and one year when I taught summer school, we went over, and they'll tell you how long ago it was, we painted the old barn that was on the property that now the Hotel Disneyland is on. And the thing that the kids liked the best was O'Hara would take his flat brush like this and then separate it into segments and then make it for fence posts. And they loved that. They just thought that was the greatest. And I was teaching when my kids went to our parochial school. I had a good friend who was an administrator over in Anaheim, and I said, "Could you check that movie out for me?" So he did, and he said, and this was years later, and he said, "Judy, I don't think anybody's checked that movie out since you." I couldn't believe it. It was really a cool movie. Okay, so let me show you what kind of trouble I'm in. But see, that works better now. Yes. All right, now let's see. Yeah, that's doing, okay. Now, This is my problem right here, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. What I'm gonna do? What I'm gonna do? I want the roof to stay white. This roof is gonna get some calligraphy on top of it. Ooh, you told me 8:30. Who's got the hook? Okay, I'm gonna put some tile, roof tile type stuff on there. And I think this has to go warm. It can't be cool, but I think the building has to go warm. And I think I kind of like this. This is one of my favorite colors. It's quinacridone coral. And I'm turning it into a little bit pinky. Let's see if I can do this. Now, I'm going to paint negatively because this has an arch of roses and stuff across it, which I kind of like. It breaks up this building, the front of it. So I'm going to do this. And then we'll see how this looks. And then also, I have gouache. I have white gouache. So if I decide that I want something to go back white again, if you won't tell the Watercolor West police, I will do something. Okay, and now this side is going to be that way too. So that really defines that. And this is going to go be the house color right here. Okay. All right, let's see. Yeah, better. But you know what has to get colored? The chimneys. On this one, the chimneys have to get colored. So there'll be a deeper version of that. But isn't it kind of fun talking your way through it, figuring out what, and if you do this, then you do that. You don't know you have to do that until you do this. You know, it's just kind of the way painting works. Okay, let's see here. I think I'll just paint them flat and then I'll put a shadow on it if I need it later. Oh, those are happy. I like those. Okay, you see? See?
Wait, hold it,
Yeah.
just hold it. Thank you,
Okay, that's much happier.
thank you.
I want to just paint all of them, and I can't do that, but I really would like to. Okay. All right. Now, these flowers, I'm going to find some foliage color here too. And then we're going to have a dark door. We'll go back to our deep ultramarine blue. Did you know that they used real lapis lazuli for the first ultramarine blue pigment? I mean, can you even imagine? And then the funniest one, though, well, it's really kind of yucky, is that Indian yellow genuine. Who knows what that is? The cattle fed mango leaves in the water, and you know where they get the yellow. But you figure all those years, you know, and what is a lot of red were cochineal beetles, and you know, think of what our great grandmas had to do for weaving and stuff. I mean, making their own dyes, and you know, we're pretty darn spoiled. Okay. I think I need to look at it and see. All right. That kind of flat pancake of green that's going off to the right, that something has to happen to that. That's got kind of a brick thing down here, so maybe I can just pick up some of these colors and suggest that. And then we're going to have some flowers up in here. And these flowers will spattered just perfectly. Oh, but you know, some of you guys, I may have told you when I was down here for when I was here for that workshop, but I was in Italy, and one of my favorite things are those big old bells and the way they sound in the bong. And then all the pigeons go. And I was there and in little pins, and I wanted to do the birds. And one of the other painters said, Judy, this is what you do. And you get a juicy kind of brush or whatever color you want. And you load up your brush and you on the ground, and then you go on your painting. And you lift out the too many, and the rest of them you put wings on. And it's irregular, because you know what happens if you paint birds on a painting? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it just looks rigid. And so that's why you do that. But I do not do a painting of birds I don't think of her. It was just great. It was super. I just have felt so lucky because I've gotten to do a lot of traveling. And my kids just kind of lament. I mean, you know, you're 30 years old and you're unhappy that your mother's going on a trip. I mean, come on, you know, you're 30. But anyway, it's kind of like, well, she's not going to be here for my birthday. And can't remember where I was going with that because I'm getting sidetracked here. Oh, maybe I'll remember if I'm supposed to. Okay, so I'm going to throw some green stuff in here to make this look like maybe we've got foliage and a path, and this needs something. Well, no, those could be little white flowers. So what can I do to that? Because I don't want to kill all this white. That's kind of, part of it's kind of neat because of the dancing of the white around here, and after all, that's what all that messy stuff was. I could put a deeper toned thing for the roof. This is an ugly color. I don't like that. That was a gray, and I don't want grays in here. This is not a gray painting. This is the Cotswold on acid. Okay. And I'm going to do, maybe I'll actually get out a little smaller brush and do some stem things here and see if I can make it feel like it's coming up here. So that this big clump of flowers makes sense. And then I can get some more of those flower colors, and that's the thing that's kind of fun though, painting this way kind of takes away any inhibitions. I mean, look what I started with. You know, it was crazy. Okay, now let's see if it's supposed to work here. I've got 2 versions of gouache and a little lid is why, to keep it really moist. Otherwise, I carry around the tube, and this is going to work. But boy, I'm having to work through it. What I'm going to do is paint this doorway white because it needs to have that white travel up into that area. So we'll see how that works. And this should work. Gouache works a lot better if you've been used to using the white in your watercolor. It comes in some watercolors. It just doesn't work as well. And so you can, and I'm going to just do the panes here. Was there a question? Was somebody talking about the watercolor pearlies? Okay, see, that's better. See how much See how much better it is just with that white door? Makes it a lot better. The other thing I can do with some gouache, which might be kind of cool, is do some stuff here. I mean, I've splattered dark on light. Why not splatter light on dark? And then I can. And this needs something here. By the way, if I said it before, it deserves another comment. I have told so many people about your studio and when I taught there and the wonderful facilities that you have here. And then I walk into this. Amazing. Amazing. You are very fortunate. Okay, and then just a few more little things, and maybe a little accent on these fence posts so that they aren't quite so wimpy. And these could even have some here. Gosh, I get to paint music. Pretty good. Okay. And now I think I probably ought to take a look at it, but here's where we are so far. Did you see? This is going to need, but I think a real light wash. It just needs to have some of that white kilt, but not too much. But it's because all of this is active, this becomes more important. And so this has to get calmed down a little bit, and I have just the brush. Did any of you guys work with Rex Brand? Yeah, anybody? The hockey brush. You love these. That is. Okay, I think maybe that light, bright, yellow, green, something. And I'm going to make it real light here at first and just to see what happens. I just want to kill some of this white. And the other side is an old painting, which is what I do with some of my old paintings. I recycle. Because if I get rid of some of this white, then the rest of that's all going to be more interesting. That is too yellow because it's right next to a bunch of yellow. And let's see if I can put a little more color right up here. This has to finish to the edge. And this got too excited when I put those green leaves on there and that was wet. Okay, let's see what happens here. Okay, it's a little bit better, and I don't know what I would do. But here's the idea of composition, is you want to be able to go around the painting and come in on a light path so that your eye can jump along here, come along here. I kind of stop you right here, so this may need I may need to do something here. This may need to go white, right here and right here. And then you can bounce along here. Then there should be a path of darks that do the same thing, that move it across. This comes down. I haven't done a real good job of the cruciform. I could do more down here with more flowers and more leaves and that kind of thing. But isn't it interesting how the dark line and the strong color overcame an extremely busy background? So thank you for making me do it, I think.